facing off against or where it is that you're placed to fight. And thank you for showing us that when there's a will to fight, there's a way to win. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, help me give a loud New York welcome to my dear friend, the firebrand from Florida, the prize fighter of the Panhandle, Congressman Matt Gaetz.
Thank you all so much for inviting this Florida man to your fancy New York Yankee party. I spoke to this gala 2 years ago, but that was in New Jersey, which is different. Matter of fact, years ago when I spoke to this gala, I was the fill-in for Sarah Palin. And tonight, I'm the fill-in for my good friend and House colleague, Byron Donalds. So I guess you could say I'm kind of like the Denny's of gala speakers. You never really meant to show up here, but we're going to make it a positive experience nonetheless. But I don't know if I love the trajectory. Sarah Palin was a governor. Byron Donalds, my fellow House member. At this rate, 2 years from now, I'm going to be filling in for Mike Lindell as he's interrupting one of his own commercials. You've met my shy wife, Ginger. What can I say about my star of a spouse? She is beautiful, brilliant, talented, and she is available for booking January 20th, 2025, when Donald John Trump is historically and triumphantly inaugurated the 47th President of these United States. Now, I don't get invited to a lot of fancy parties in Washington, D.C., and when I am, I often look at the invitation with the skepticism that Joe Pesci's character should have had in Goodfellas. Oh, if I show up, I'll be a made guy. What could possibly go wrong? But just think of the MAGA talent we have assembled here. Steve Bannon, we've got Bernie Kerik, Boris Epshteyn, Vish Burra, Rudy Giuliani, President Trump, myself, all under one roof. And if Joe Biden is reelected, that roof will be known as Cell Block A. Rudy Giuliani is one of the greatest crime fighters who has ever lived in the United States of America. He took out the mob in New York. He took out the riffraff and the hoodlums. He put this city on his back to become an economic and political and cultural powerhouse. And if there were any justice in this world, they would never stop building statues to Rudy Giuliani in this once great city. And Steve Bannon, what can I say about my friend and mentor? I really think that War Room Prison Break is going to be the best lineup of the series. We had War Room Impeachment, War Room Pandemic. You were really ahead on that one. But with War Room Prison Break, you're going to be able to enter code Bannon at Birch Cold to directly contribute to Steve's release. I miss simpler days when our political conflict was about who had the most novel take on quantitative easing, or perhaps some nip or tuck we could make to tax or regulatory policy. But Republicans and Democrats, they used to work together and be celebrated as master legislators if they renamed post offices. Everybody loves a good blue ribbon commission. They had perfect families, perfect lives, even perfect hair. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It should be a requirement in American politics today. But authenticity, the sincere willingness to take risk to improve people's lives, is harder to find in Washington, D.C. today than Jamal Bowman during a fire drill. For decades, the waters in Congress were calm, but the American people were drowning in floods of debt, devaluation, offshoring of our jobs amid endless war and despair. These are not simple days. We are at war, our movement is under siege, and we need the toughest, baddest fighters we can find. As New York Republicans, you live behind enemy lines, and you know what awaits our country if we fail. They're just raising taxes. They are destroying the dollar as an economic institution in the world. They aren't just creating new wasteful programs. They are terminating parental rights if you don't call your kids Sir. They aren't just growing government. They are trying to defeat President Trump in the witness box and the jury box because they know they will never be able to legitimately defeat him at the ballot box. There is a reason we love it when President Trump says, "Drain the swamp." It's because we know instinctively that the entire ecosystem needs disruption for something better to arise of the muck. Now, I'm a lifelong Florida man, and I know swamps well. To build golf courses and subdivisions and outlet malls for all you New Yorkers, I've seen many swamps drained. And here's something I can share. The alligators and the snakes and the vermin, well, they don't really enjoy the process. As the water level drops, they thrash and hiss and rattle around like crazy. Now, I know I have taken a little bit of criticism recently. Even the Wall Street Journal led with this editorial headline, "The Gaetz of Republican Hell." It was the first regime change that the Wall Street Journal had ever opposed, a first for them. But my crime wasn't opening the border or weaponizing the administrative state. I had the nerve to demand that Republican lawmakers actually start keeping their promises to Republican voters. That for once, we stop continuing everything in Washington the same way it's always been done. The Republican majority in the House of Representatives is the sole lever of power we have right now, and I don't think it's unreasonable that we start using it. And Speaker Mike Johnson has finally sending a damn subpoena to Hunter and Frank Biden. For too many years, the Republican Party was infected with surrender as a strategy. Amnesty for illegal immigrants, intervention overseas, and selling out to corporate America won the day. I will never be okay with this. They can hate me, they can smear me, they can try to expel me, but what they really hate is that I am the only Republican in Congress who takes no donations from federal lobbyists or political action committees. I work for you, not them. They couldn't buy me off, they couldn't compromise me or destroy me, and they've tried all three, but here I stand, more inspired than ever to deliver for this great president and this great movement we're all a part of. What has emerged in Congress today is a dangerous uni-party fused together by a mutual interest in changing as little as possible. They keep getting rich in a rigged game, while seniors see their savings diluted and millennials see diminished lives. The generation that should be undertaking leadership cannot undertake the interest rates in modern mortgages. And interestingly, you haven't felt or seen enough difference between Republican and Democrat control in Congress because both sides are working for the same special interests. Big business, big banks, big tech, big pharma, they fund both parties bigly. They will buy off multiple candidates in a single contest. Ron DeSantis seems angry that establishment donors are flipping to Nikki Haley. They are willing to flip so easily because they never really believed in anything to begin with. And foreign governments have learned to play by these rules too. Hunter Biden's best defense may be that it's a time-honored tradition in Washington to have foreign governments paying bribes to people's family members. I was astonished recently by this phenomenon. It's even more shocking than the phenomenon I've seen in the UFO hearings. But it's the phenomenon of how good spouses of members of Congress are at lobbying. Having a lawmaker's spouse become a paid lobbyist is now so prevalent in Washington, they have to have a special slide presentation on that subject during mandatory ethics training. Think about that. When someone gets elected to Congress, there's suddenly a huge demand to hire their spouse as a lobbyist. Senator Menendez in neighboring New Jersey had wife number 2 shaking down the Egyptians for gold bars. Their biggest crime might have just been not doing the right paperwork. And now my colleagues want to negotiate with me. They grit their teeth through the hatred, and they want to raise the threshold on the motion to vacate a Speaker of the House. Well, I'll make this deal. We can raise the threshold on the motion to vacate when there is a lifetime ban on members of Congress and their immediate family from becoming lobbyists or registered foreign agents. You play for our team or theirs, no entering the transfer portal. I still remember when leadership had their first intervention with me, they said I lacked patience, I felt they lacked courage, and now one of them lacks keys to the Speaker's office. To my colleagues, these jobs we have, they aren't worth having if you're not willing to say a simple word. No. No authorizing programs which have been corrupted like FISA. No, we aren't going to keep funding Mayorkas if he doesn't secure the border. We're not going to authorize a military that wants to be a drag show performance troupe that loses wars on the side. And we are not going to send money to a dispute over which guy in a sweatsuit runs Crimea. We aren't spending one more taxpayer dollar on CRT or DEI or pronouns or protests. The Republican Party is the only vehicle available for our uses in the mission ahead, and you, as battle-hardened Republicans of New York, know how America's story ends if we fail. Importing the third world's problems to slum it on your streets is rotting the Big Apple to its core. And just look at who the Democrats have given us as their standard bearer. Joe Biden. In the words of America's greatest president, they aren't exactly sending their best. Joe Biden is too old and too corrupt to be president. If you are as old as Joe Biden, you should be grandfatherly. The sweet type, not the scratch and sniff weirdo type. And if you're as corrupt as Joe Biden, you better inspire us and look like a Kennedy. Less than a year from now, America has a choice to make: greatness or decline. I look around this city and I see the fingerprints of President Trump everywhere. The Trump Tower, Trump International Hotel, Central Park Skating Rink, the Plaza Hotel, some of the greatest assets in the world. And how has New York rewarded this great man? By trying to bankrupt and imprison him. And why has this been the left's response? It is because they seethe at the thought of greatness. They are the political party that considers Kamala Harris an intellectual, John Fetterman a senator, and Lizzo a sex symbol. Look at how they treat our great nation. Everything is in downgrade, from the Senate dress code to the freaking dollar. The APR on every major American credit card is skyrocketing as Joe Biden soils his pants on the way to meet the Pope. You get a statue in this country if you die of a fentanyl overdose, but if you lead a revolution, write a constitution, your statue gets torn down and used as scrap metal. They don't want to make America great again because they don't believe America was ever great. That is the difference between the people in this room and the leftists outside who will return home to an air fryer recipe for one lonely soul. Our heroes are Davy Crockett, Theodore Roosevelt, Thomas Jefferson, Donald Trump. Their heroes are George Floyd and Dylan Mulvaney and Anthony Fauci. It is why we have no choice to elect Donald Trump, the next president of the United States. He more than anyone knows that you have to fight. You have to fight like hell to return this nation to our glory. Our nation's decline is because too many Republicans have been derelict in their duty. Politics is choose your fighter time, I know who I want fighting for me and America and all of you, the greatest president we have ever known. I will fight for this man. I will put it all on the line because I see how hard he fights for all of us. God bless you. God bless the great Empire State. God bless the greatest mayor who has ever lived, Rudy Giuliani. Let's go get him.